Hi, this is Calabash Flash, the North American correspondent for Bondi Tunes Music and Chat, reporting from Calabash, North Carolina. If you check the East Coast map of the United States, you'll see that North and South Carolina, I'm kind of down in the corner there, right between the North and South Carolina coast. And it's a little fishing village called Calabash, North Carolina. And I'm going to do something, as Monty Python used to say, something completely different. Now, you have a lot of rock and doo-wop and oldies and everything on replay radio, but I'm going to try to introduce this audience to some Carolina beach music. Now, a lot of people, they hear the word beach music or the term beach music, and they think, oh, yes, I know all about beach music. That's the Beach Boys and Jan and Dean and all that business from the West Coast, and that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is Carolina beach music. What we call Jan and Dean and the Beach Boys, we call that California surf music. So what we're talking about now is Carolina beach music. And the roots of Carolina beach music are from the old R&B back in the late 40s, early 50s, and through the 50s, and maybe even to the 60s. And it's not necessarily oldies because we have a lot of new groups, which is what I'm going to try to introduce to you over the coming weeks. Today I'm going to talk about a group that started out from Raleigh, North Carolina, back in the 50s, if I understand it right. The name of this group is called the Embers. And the Embers, back in that time, where I'm going to be playing you some of the music from, consisted of a fellow by the name of Jackie Gore. Many people in this area of the Carolinas, when we talk about Carolina beach music, they say Jackie Gore is the voice of Carolina beach music. He has a wonderful voice, very distinctive. He played guitar when he was with the Embers. Bobby Tomlinson, who is still with the Embers, even though they've changed a lot of members over the years. Bobby Tomlinson is one of the organizers, and he plays drums. Gerald Davis, great bass player. He was with the Embers on the songs that I'm going to be playing for you here today. But now he plays with another group. He left the Embers several years ago and now plays with a group called the Legends of the Beach. And Craig Woolard is on saxophone on this particular these songs that I'll be playing. And Craig, he left the Embers several years ago, and now he has his own group called the Craig Woolard Band. He will be featured in some other week to follow when I talk about other bands. And we have a lot of different bands in the Southeast that I'm sure you never heard of out there in this particular audience, but very, very popular in the southeast portion of the United States. And finally, Johnny Hopkins on trumpet. Johnny also left the Embers many years ago, and now plays with a group called North Tower. They're also out of Raleigh, North Carolina. So this is a pure Carolina group. They've done a lot of recording. In fact, the album that I'm holding in front of me right here is called the Embers 25th Anniversary, and this was several years ago. So anyway, most of the people have turned over except for the founder, Bobby Tomlinson, and he's still playing drums. Anyway, they've got a lot of new things, but what I'm going to be featuring today and talking about today is the original Embers, because, as I said, I'm trying to give you some background into Carolina beach music. First of all, I'm going to play Embers Beach Medley because it includes a lot of songs that will kind of explain, rather than me try to tell you about, Carolina beach music. A lot of the songs that they played in this medley are what we consider some of our classic beach songs. But at the same time, they're not, you will recognize some of them, but some of them you won't. Some of them are considered oldies, and some of them are considered just Carolina beach music that maybe, chances are, probably you've never heard before, which is why I'm trying to feature some of the groups and songs that this particular audience of Henry's has never heard before. So my shtick over the next weeks as his North American correspondent, which I love saying, is going to be to introduce you to Carolina beach music and the dance of the Carolinas that goes with it. Now, I won't get into that because there's a term that we use for our dancing that is kind of taboo in many parts of the world, and I won't use it. So I'll just tell you to go to Google, look up the state dance of South Carolina, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Go to Google, the state dance of South Carolina. It's the actual official state dance of South Carolina. There's been movies made about it, and there's been songs written about it. But in our country, this particular word is simply a dance, not anything else, just a dance. But anyway, the dance of the Carolinas goes along with Carolina beach music. Just a little background again. Where did the idea of beach music come from? Back in the 40s and 50s, when a lot of our black artists here and R&B artists in the United States, of course, they weren't getting play on many of the radio stations. In fact, they were probably getting play almost no radio stations because it was considered race music and they weren't being played at that time. However, when the folks from the Carolinas would come to the coastline to go to the beaches, and many of the pavilions along the coastline had jukeboxes. And in those jukeboxes, they had a lot of records that were not being played on the radio, particularly of black artists like the Dominoes and even some of the Drifters' early music, and Hank Ballard in the Midnight, people like that. So when the people came from all over the Carolinas to the beach for vacation, they heard music that they did not hear when they were back home. They had come to the beach to vacation, and they heard this music, and that's part of the reason why now they call it beach music, because it was music that you heard when you came to the beach that you hadn't heard ever before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you this one song by the Embers on their 25th anniversary album. It's a medley of Carolina beach music, some of which are oldies and some of which are songs that are strictly Carolina beach music. This is Calabash Flash, and I hope you enjoyed this first segment of Carolina Beach Music featuring the Embers. I'll be back with part 2 of the Embers next week, and in following weeks, I'll have many other Carolina Beach Music artists. Until then, take care. Bye for now. Hi, this is Calabash Flash, the North American correspondent for Bondi Tunes Music and Chat, reporting from Calabash, North Carolina. I think we need a short recap of last week's segment dealing with Carolina Beach Music and our introduction to the Carolina Beach Music and one of our most famous Carolina Beach Music groups from Raleigh, North Carolina. You may be wondering why I chose the Embers as the first Carolina Beach Music group to spotlight during Beach Music segment. It's because the Embers were the first group that I remember hearing about when I was introduced to the Carolina Beach Music scene. One other quick reminder, don't forget to Google South Carolina State Dance. That's the South Carolina State Dance. So you know what I'm talking about when I talk about the Dance of the Carolinas. At the end of the show, I played a beach music medley from the Embers to try to explain a little bit what Carolina beach music sound is like. I'm going to play just a snippet of the end to pick you up where we left off last week. I think it's pretty evident from the medley that you just heard by the Embers that the Carolina Beach Music is pretty much up-tempo kind of music, fun music. It doesn't get real deep. It's just kind of a fun dancing music because we certainly like to dance. Where it's a dancing culture here in the Carolinas, and it's one of those things that people just come out almost every day of the year, especially around Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach here in South Carolina, to come and dance. And that kind of music that you hear by the Embers is pretty typical of a lot of the music. Now you notice there was a lot of horns in a lot of those songs. And one of the distinctive differences really, between California surf music and the Carolina beach music is if you ever saw a Beach Boys concert, they'll line up 3 or 4 guitars in the front, and it's a guitar-driven band. Whereas in the Carolinas and Carolina beach music, a little more soulful and a lot of horns. Many of the bands have 2 or 3 or 4, sometimes even 5 horns in their section, so that they get a great full sound of trombones and trumpets and saxophones. It's really wonderful. That is one of the primary differences. As I said, the Carolina beach music is just fun dance music. We're dancers here in the Carolinas. As I said, the South Carolina State Dance, the Dance of the Carolinas, people come here all times of the year. The clubs here in the Carolinas, especially along the coast, is what I'm talking about. They're full, people are dancing, and it's a lot of fun. It's probably one of the best places that I've ever been. And as I mentioned to Henry in my first interview, which we had a little problem with the sound, the age group is a little older age group from, say, 50 on up. And when you go into the clubs in the Carolinas along the coast here, it's generally an older crowd, but they're all our dancers. And as is also mentioned to them, that of course, because it's a resort area, we do have clubs for the younger crowd, and that's great. And even we do have some younger dancers that come out to our clubs. Basically, it's an older crowd, and they love this Carolina beach music. I'm going to continue on here and talk just a little bit more about the Embers. I'm going to play you a song that was actually written by one of the members, Jackie Gore. As I mentioned, he is a great singer, played guitar. And actually, he's now left the Embers also, and he's also playing with a group called the Legends of the Beach. Some of the guys that had played for many, many years, they went off, created a band of their own called Legends of the Beach. When Jackie Gore, the sound of Carolina beach music, he wrote the song that was right at the end of the medley, a song called I Love Beach Music. He wrote it, sang it, the Embers played it, and it was actually, it's almost like the national anthem, if you will, for Carolina beach music, because it is called I Love Beach Music.
I always have and I always will. There ain't no other kind of music in the world that gives me quite the thrill. When I hear 60-minute man and walking up a one-way street, he's up on the roof, he's under the boardwalk, summertime's calling me. Beach music. Beach music. I love beach music, 'cause I was born with it in my bones. I learned to shag on the beach with the salt in the air and the sand at my feet. Yeah, ooh, Miss Grace, 3921 for the shade. What kind of fool do you think I am, when forever and ever it will stand? Yes, I love beach music every single day of my life. I love beach music, you know that I do. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Do-do. Every single day of my life. I love beach music, you know that I do. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I love beach music. That old beer drinking music, shagging kind of music like you hear at OD. I love beach music. I'm talking about music by the Towns, the Clovers, the Catalinas, the Embers. I love beach music, you know that I do.
So until next time, this is Calabash Flash reporting for Henry O'Donovan's Bondi Tunes, Music and Chat. Take care, bye for now, and long live Carolina beach music.